Okay, so Steve Bruce has left Newcastle United by mutual consent. No surprise, really. The speculation surrounding Steve Bruce has been there for over a year, and this is partly with the backdrop of the takeover, which was stalled last year and blocked and then allowed to take place. This has been a very long, protracted process. But Steve Bruce faced the same challenges that Rafa Benitez did. And Rafa Benitez, in my mind, yes, is the better manager. He's got a lot of silverware there. Steve Bruce, solid manager, not outstanding, not terrible. You know, yes, his managerial style may not suit the Premier League. You know, his tactics may be a bit dated. But he's coached 1,000 games. He's managed 1,000 games in his career. That says to me, he's pretty decent at his job. But he was on a hiding to nothing. It was a catch-22. Newcastle, when they hired Steve Bruce, went through the same process that Tottenham have done this summer with Nuno Espirito Santo. They went through 7 or 8 candidates before getting to Steve Bruce. He was not obviously the first choice. That tells you something about the ownership of the club then to the ownership of the club now. I will say this to Newcastle fans: be careful what you wish for. They need stability. The fear I have is there's going to be a massive overhaul of the playing squad in January rather than in the summer transfer window. I actually believe a relegation possibly might be better for Newcastle long term, where they can actually stabilise, rebuild the infrastructure of the club behind the scenes, and then aim to go forward. But Rafa Benitez faced the same challenges that Steve Bruce did. Less social media criticism and abuse on social media, I will admit that. But for the last 5 years, since Mike Ashley's basically said the club's up for sale, the investment actually in the club is just dried up. The transfer market kitty, as we'll call it, the transfer funds haven't been there. Both managers haven't been given the tools to get what the players they want, and a lot of players have been on the transfer market, available to be signed, and have not been interested in Newcastle. Saint-Maximin, I think, is one of the better finds in recent years for Newcastle United. He is a brilliant player, and given the right teammates and the right tactics, yes, he undoubtedly could not only just have those flashes of brilliance, but and he could set the Premier League alight. I really like Saint-Maximin, what he brings with his energy and his effort. I do fear that there's going to be a mass squad overhaul. I think that's actually the wrong way to go about it. They just need to make a few changes, bring a few players in, bring maybe a veteran player in, someone who can actually galvanise that dressing room. And they need to look, and this is where Amanda Staveley's come out and said the training ground, the training facilities, the youth facilities have been neglected under Mike Ashley. There needs to be massive investment in the infrastructure of the club in that sense. On another point, there has already been provisional plans of a new stadium in Newcastle. I don't think they need to leave St. James's Park. Honest to God, I think the stadium they have is a brilliant facility. The Newcastle fan base are going to turn up. Wind, rain, snow, whatever, sunshine, whatever conditions. It's only been towards the end of Mike Ashley's ownership that there's been fan boycotts where there's empty seats. You hardly ever see empty seats at St. James's Park. It's always a 50,000 plus crowd at St. James's Park. When you're seeing empty seats, things have gone horribly wrong. Now, I followed this saga from the beginning. I've been highly critical of Mike Ashley from the beginning of this channel. The fact that it's taken the best part of 5 years to find a buyer for this club, and the fact that other Premier League clubs tried to basically stop the sale going ahead, which I think is wrong, says there's other issues that the Premier League and the FA need to sort out, and the transparency of club ownership, club purchases, club sales, who owns what. We know the financial fair play rules are a joke. We know the fit of proper persons test. Is it properly applied? Because from what I've seen from a lot of owners at a lot of clubs, a lot of club owners, doesn't mean if they're overseas or UK based, should never own football clubs. They're not fit and proper people. Look what happened to Bury. Smaller club, smaller fry, I admit that, but look what happened to them. A guy was allowed to basically hold the power strings there, didn't pay the players for 6 months, tried to asset strip, and eventually that club went out of business, which was a disgrace. So there are issues with the whole process to lead us to this point. I will say this: Fonseca is coming up as a favourite to replace Steve Bruce. He's a solid manager. He's got a solid CV, former Roma manager. But whoever comes in, they're going to have the same problems to face for the next 2.5 months until the transfer window opens. So they're not going to be able to change the squad for a while. Hopefully their search for a new manager is quick, unlike Tottenham's debacle over the summer. And look where Tottenham are. They haven't really hit any kind of form. Admittedly, the international breaks have also caused problems. for consistency. I think we've had too many international breaks. So whoever Newcastle get in, Fonseca is favourite, but there's a lot of other managers who are available, is going to have a very tough challenge to stabilise the situation, improve the results, get some wins, I think is crucial, and try and improve the confidence of the playing group. Last season they finished 12th, FA Cup quarter-final, best FA Cup finish under the Mike Ashley era, but there needs to be a change in the atmosphere at the club. Now, yeah, new money, new owners, there's not a lot they can do till January. It'll be interesting to see what players come in, what players leave. I do fear there's going to be a mass squad exodus, mass squad overhaul. Too many new signings and too many new faces doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get out of trouble. I think before they start doing that, they need to improve on the field. There are some teams around them that are struggling as well. So if they beat the teams around them and start getting their way out of trouble, that could be a basis for a springboard. I think next summer is when the changes should really happen to the playing squad. They're not out of trouble. They could get relegated this season, but we'll see what happens. It was a very predictable end to Steve Bruce's time in charge. At least he wasn't sacked. He left by mutual consent. So at least he can say he left on his terms rather than the club going, we don't want you anymore. But he only had one game in charge of the new ownership, which says to me that the new owners already have a candidate or candidates they wish to interview. They might already have a replacement lined up. So we'll see what happens there. But let's hope that their managerial search is not as chaotic as Tottenham's, because that was a saga that, well, the off-season was just the Tottenham saga. Is Harry Kane going to go back to training? Who's going to be the manager? Are players going to leave? Are there transfer requests? Let's hope that isn't the case. But I think in the short to medium term, it's going to take time to rebuild the foundations and the infrastructure of the club. In the long term, yeah, they could be successful. But money doesn't always buy you success. Just remember that. Money doesn't necessarily guarantee success. Having loads of superstar players doesn't guarantee success. Look at the Galacticos at Real Madrid. They were throwing cash around at some big superstar players and were surprisingly very unsuccessful. So there needs to be a good team culture, team unity, confidence needs to come back. So we'll see what happens in the first post-Steve Bruce game and the second post-Mike Ashley era game. And we'll see if the form improves. And whoever they get in has got a very tough challenge, but maybe a new voice in the dressing room what these players need. They need a shot in the arm, some confidence, but off the field, there needs to be massive infrastructure investment, training ground, youth facilities, training facilities in general, club structures obviously need to be looked at. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be a very interesting remainder of the season for Newcastle. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts below, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.